Hi everybody, welcome to TwP. I'm Opaloid. This is my second solo video. I did one the other day on INFPs, and from that there was a request to look at male INFPs and specifically at the influence of TE and TI in male INFPs. I sat with this request for a while. I did a bit of research and looked at some of the videos which are out there, looked at some web pages, and I came across the usual material, which was to do with how INFPs are seeking TE as it's their inferior function, so their fourth. I also came across some research to do with TI as the eighth and how in the eighth slot, or the role slot in Socionics, or role function in Socionics, under stress or anxiety, INFPs may switch into TI mode. But beyond that, I thought the issue was quite dry. And when I was sort of like thinking as to the dynamics involved in the various different things that I was coming across in my research, I thought a central part of it seems to do with identity. That may seem quite obvious because MBTI is to do with personality or identity. But it seemed in particular that there were some identity issues linked to INFPs and INFP males and the notion of where they fit or belong, given that society is quite T-based, quite S-based generally, and that INFPs in general and male INFPs in particular are not exhibiting those sort of like commonly held traits, so there might be a sense of feeling different or isolated or alienated as a result. And as I was thinking about these dynamics, I wondered to myself, sort of like, how can I best address this issue? And for some reason, the idea of poetry came into my mind. I'm not widely read by any stretch of the imagination. Don't have a repository of poems that I know well. So what I did this morning was actually go on a website looking for sort of like famous poems and any in particular that may resonate with this theme. And I came across one which I'd like to make the focus of this video. And I know that this is a bit of a departure from the normal TwFP videos that are out there, or the ones that I've seen at least. But I thought I'd try my hand for this second solo video, sort of like going through a poem and then reading it out loud first off, all the way through, and then doing an analysis of it and how I think it ties with INFPs, both men and women, and specifically this stuff to do with identity and difference. Yeah, I'm going to be doing this video in chunks, so bear with me, and hopefully it won't be too disjointed. Just quickly, the poem that I've chosen is called Theme for English B by Langston Hughes. The poem is actually to do with ethnicity, race, race relations, minorities, and identity and difference, which may seem like a strange thing, like a strange tangent or topic to focus on to demonstrate INFP dynamics, but I felt like the same issues were at hand. Yeah, and in particular, this poem, as I was reading it, something about it says INFP to me for some reason. It's quite earthy, grounded, real, and I think it exemplifies quite a lot of INFP themes in it. Yeah, I know this video was an outcrop of a request by Jay Stewart for INFP males in particular, but I think it applies equally well to our INFP females. So in the next section, what I'm going to do is actually read out the poem and have the poem actually on the screen. For the section after that, I'm going to be having snippets or segments of the poem, which I'm then going to talk about in relation to INFPs, and hopefully this little experiment will come out okay. So please bear with me as I skip to the next part, which is reading out the poem. Okay. Just for a bit of background information, Langston Hughes was born in 1902 and died in 1967. He was an American poet, social activist, novelist, playwright, and columnist from Missouri. So, without further ado, I'm going to try and read this out for you. Please bear with me. Theme for English B by Langston Hughes. The instructor said, "Go home and write a page tonight, and let that page come out of you. Then it will be true." I wonder if it's that simple. I am 22, coloured, born in Winston-Salem. I went to school there, then Durham, then here, to this college on the hill above Harlem. I'm the only coloured student in my class. The steps from the hill lead down into Harlem, through a park, then I cross St. Nicholas, 8th Avenue 7th, then I come to the Y, the Harlem branch Y, where I take the elevator up to my room, sit down and write this page. It's not easy to know what is true for you or me at 22, my age, but I guess I'm what I feel and see and hear. Harlem, I hear you, hear me, we too, you, me, talk on this page. I hear New York too. Me? Who? Well, I like to eat, sleep, drink and be in love. I like to work, read, learn and understand life. I like a pipe for a Christmas present, or records, Bessie, Bop or Back. I guess being coloured doesn't make me not like the same things other folks like who are other races. So will my page be coloured that I write? Being me, it will not be white, but it will be a part of you, instructor. You are white, yet a part of me, as I am a part of you. That's American. Sometimes perhaps you don't want to be a part of me, nor do I often want to be a part of you. But we are, that's true. As I learn from you, I guess you learn from me. Although you're older and white and somewhat more free, this is my page for English B. Hi, so I just did the recital. Hopefully it came out okay. And now what I'd like to do is do a thematic analysis chunk by chunk. So I'm going to go through. The first chunk is the first verse, and that was with the directions from the instructor and through to I wonder if it's that simple. So in my mind, I imagine the scenario of the poem being linked to civil rights suppression, but I converted it in my head to INFP's right to exist and be authentic. Within this sort of like landscape, I placed the instructor or the teacher as being an extension of the SJ school system and the social structures, issuing a directive to the student to go and write. And with that, the INFP student being slightly bemused as to sort of like, well, how do I go about doing this? I found it quite interesting how there's the sentiment of let the page come out of you and then it will be true, and the student questioning, I wonder if it's that simple. What came to me linked to that was stuff to do with truth and authenticity, i.e. FI, and that coupled with any in the emergence of whatever may come out, with the whole self-expression element. What I've noticed quite often with INFPs and FI users generally is that the FI wants to be kept held within, and any time that it's seemingly expressed or shared outside of the self, I think FI users, and in particular INFPs, fear that there'll be a loss of authenticity. I wonder if you, the viewer, sort of like agree with this. Yeah, and I also think that there's another like frustration that INFPs hold, which is to do with whether sort of like their ideal image that they hold in their mind, so that idealism will actually align with outer reality. So if they were to outpour, would whatever they actually create match, the ideal picture that they have for themselves, their creations, for their life, and so on and so forth. Expanding this further, I think that this ties in with INFPs generally wondering who they are in society and in the span of their lives. And the life that they create for themselves or don't. So these are the things that came out through the first chunk, and also that quizzing of can it actually be that simple? What are the catches that are involved? Can I be myself? Can I have my FI cake and eat it too? Okay, moving on to the next section. So this is the second verse, which is all about being born in, being coloured and born in Winston-Salem. They're going to Durham, then Harlem, and the path and the way of the school, and also stuff to do with feeling different from the other kids because of race and ethnicity. That verse brought to my mind all these questions that I think INFPs often hold, and probably NFs in general, which is the question of who am I, and like search for identity. INFPs, their cognitive stack is leading with FI, so FI at the top, then NE, then SI, then TE. And I think this paragraph or this verse actually demonstrates the SITE frames of factual recall of the self. And I think sort of there's a contextualization of the life of the INFP in the SITE timelines, and scenes that they find themselves within. And I think this verse also demonstrates, especially with the sentence, I am the only coloured student in my class, it demonstrates the dynamic that I think many INFPs feel, where they're likely to be rare within the classroom or the setting that they find themselves in. And in MBTI terms, they're supposed to be rare within the populace. So it all fits together in that way. This verse, I think, sort of like taps into the bottom of the INFP stack to do with SI and TE. But it's seemingly sets the scene for the more sort of like expensive, deeper, more profound questions that INFPs face, which are demonstrated in the following following verse, which is to do with, it starts with, it's not easy to know what is true for you or me at 22, my age, and then continues through the Harlem, New York, and has other bits and bobs of sort of like self-identification. I thought a lot of this verse was very, very powerful. In particular, was the sentence to do with, I am what I feel, see, and hear. This collapsed together the FI and SI. And I've talked in an earlier video with Eric about how the FI and the SI seem to root the INFP in their experience. So the FI sort of like emotion, values, beliefs, etc., and the SI in the third with sort of like the roots of themselves. But linked to that is this notion of groundedness and earthing. I see INFPs as being very earthy and very grounded. They're very much into the embodiment of themselves. So their emotion, their values, beliefs are held within. They're literally felt. And likewise, it's as though they are of their body, but also of the body of the earth. So location, geography, and being part of the place, and the place being part of them. And I think this is exhibited in the Harlem, New York thing, and marries into this notion of like INFPs being into sort of like, just bear with me, the image of a tree, and sort of like the soil, the earth, the roots, and really sort of like making one's place within like those roots comes to mind. And even though like INFPs are intuitives with that I see them as more physical than metaphysical creatures. And a story that I'd like to share at this juncture, which I think demonstrates it quite well, is I've talked before about a friend of mine who is an INFP, who I'm very, very close to. And she grew up in a place which had a lot of countryside, and she has told me of the joy that she experienced as a child just roaming amongst the fields. There may not have been many people around, but she felt as though she was sort of like one with the land, and she would love simply sort of like wandering around field to field and seeing what she may find, seeing what sort of like little trinkets that life has sort of like laid in her sort of like path, and finding these objects and appreciating them and creating narratives around them, and just I got the sense of like that there was a specialness to the very notion of being able to wander and finding these things that were placed there for her by the earth, by circumstance, by context. And this passage in the poem reminded me of that. This notion of being part of this place, and the place being part of who she was or is. And likewise for other INFPs, I wonder if that's similarly true, that location, geography, land, ground, earth are really important things that root the INFP. With this verse also was this notion of a simplicity about life, and a simplicity that comes with authenticity. It's as though sort of like there's not much that's needed, but the good stuff, the wholesome stuff, the stuff that brings love, joy, comfort, the real sort of like simple pleasures in life, simple comforts, are what the INFP sort of like is, really, really cherishing. In the verse, the author has the sentence to do with, I like to work, read, learn, and understand life. And again, I think this exemplifies many INFPs and what they're actually looking for, and what they're actually doing, probably day in and day out. I feel quite touched actually, because I'm thinking about my friend, and this poem. I'm going to share it with her. I think it will resonate with her, and hopefully I'll get her to view this at some point. In the verse, there was a little bit about get me a pipe for a Christmas present, and also music. So Bessie, Bop, and all back, and this demonstrated to me sort of like that any sort of like the variety, and also the SI, the comfort seeking element. The verse at the end goes into stuff to do with the contrast, basically, of sort of like having sort of establish these deeper aspects of like presence and being, i.e. the FI and SI, and sort of like that groundedness and everything like that, it segues in, for the last three sentences, into stuff to do with alienation and belonging. So it's as though it's sort of like there's a belonging to the earth, but there's an alienation that comes with that. So, for example, the sentences to do with, I guess being coloured doesn't make me not like the same things other folks like who are other races. And it's as though there's that balancing of FI and FE dynamics, of being together but alone. So this insularity as much as existing with other people. And the question at the end of this verse, which is, so will my page be coloured what I write? What that brought to my mind is that INFPs can't help but be different. This might be a difference that other people don't accept, or INFPs don't accept in themselves, but I think it's part and parcel of the identity of an INFP. You know, it's part and parcel of their identity, and it's something that should be cherished. So moving on to the next verse. This is the verse that starts, being me, it will not be white, but it will be. And it goes into stuff to do with parts and the instructor. I thought this verse again was very, very telling. It demonstrates FI and FE dynamics, and which links to the end of the last verse, but it there's that element of never being the same as everyone, which I think is true for FI users. They are all about their individuality, but I think there's that notion of FI users feeling a sense of alienation and a lack of belonging, or a lack of not fitting in, when that might not always be the case. And I think that demonstrates the FE blindness, and that's FE in the fifth, and a tussle within the psyche of the INFP between the FI sort of like holding on to their individuality, and then the FE sort of like being aware of other people and the needs of the group, society, norms, etc. And then the FI with sort of like it having sort of like a defiant quality of wanting to maintain itself, and balancing these two. And I get a sense that there's a bittersweetness that many INFPs experience in knowing that they I think there's a bittersweetness that many INFPs experience knowing that they exist within a larger social structure, a larger framing, be it with the FE or be it with the TE. And I think there's an aggravation that INFPs experience, that they are actually part of society and this larger world and this existence. Because it's as though there's a dynamic of like maintaining insularity, maintaining the FI, authenticity, individuality, so on and so forth, and then sort of like trying to couple and marry that to a larger sphere of existence where that FI might be lost, where that FI might be invalidated, where they may not be able to feel like they can hold on to their authentic sense of self. I think sort of like balancing this is something that many INFPs face. And I think coupled into that is, obviously this is predicated upon the upbringing of the INFP child and the adult that they become. But I think many INFPs can feel divorced from a society that seemingly does not see or value them for who they are and what they can bring to the party, you know, what they can really offer. I see this exhibited, I think, in the MBTI community as well, where FI as a function is sort of like seemingly devalued or gets a negative sort of like press and is poo-pooed. Likewise with INFPs, there's like the common memes to do with the crybaby and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, there is a real necessity about INFPs, both in the framework of the 16 types, but also in society at large. And I think, many people are guilty of this, of sort of like denigrating FI and INFPs unnecessarily. And I think that probably is linked to FI being introverted feeling, and this notion that FI in a sense completes us all. It's that aspect of ourselves that makes us aware of our own humanity, and our own humanity amongst all the mechanization and systematization and dare I say conditionality of modern society. Sort of like the FI sort of allows us to maintain that aspect of humanness that can be lost very, very easily in the way that society is structured. Hi, my computer just crashed as I was recording, which was great. So I ended up losing the last chunk of what I recorded, so I'm going to re-record it now. My apologies if this, anything in what I'm about to say is repetitive, but hopefully it won't be, so bear with me. So, just to finish off, this video has basically been a call to INFPs to embrace their identity and to embrace their difference. I would say that beyond just looking at INFPs who exist out there on the web and in my own life and everything like that, I think this video also taps into me calling to myself to embrace my own individuality as a likely INFJ and my own FI. When I was reading the poem, I definitely resonated with aspects of it tied to authenticity and how to balance a sense of self and to balance authentic expression with the demands that are placed upon us and me. So with this notion about embracing identity difference, I wanted to put something out there, which is that I sometimes get a sense that INFPs have a sense of defiance of not wishing to conform or be like anybody else because they want to hold their FI so staunchly. But in a strange sense, they cut off their nose in order to spite their own face. It's as though they want to remain insular in the FI to the detriment of everything, including their own sort of like thriving. And I could well imagine, as per the poem, INFP saying, saying the quote, "Sometimes perhaps you don't want to be a part of me, nor do I often want to be a part of you." This being INFPs in life and existence, in social structures, in FE, in TE, etc., etc. But I want to throw something into the mix to actually address that point, which is you don't have to not be yourself. You can embrace your FI and take back control and follow your own autonomy and path. Simply because the world, society, etc. is structured in a particular way, and in a way which may seem against the natural preferences of INFPs, be it females or males, i.e. with the whole promotion of S and T and J. Use that sort of like fight, not to harm yourself by keeping insular, but by opening up to the world, but being yourself in the world. This is your life as much as, and your existence as much as it is anybody else's life and existence, and it is your world as much as it is anybody else's, and you have just as much right to exist in this world and to thrive. With that, I wanted to say, addressing the actual point of departure of this video, which was to do with INFP males and TE and TI. Forget trying to be everything and everything and sorry, let me start again. Forget trying to be everything that everybody else wants you to be. Stop trying to maximize your TE and your TI, but instead learn to embrace your FINE strengths and give from that place. The crucial thing is that the outcome that you seek as INFPs is not actually to be like everybody else or to align to other people's idea of success or competence. The outcome that you're actually wishing for is contained and held within the process of being. And by that, I mean, you want to maintain your own sense of authenticity in all aspects of your life and in your being, irrespective of the outcome. And you want that irrespective if you're a male or female INFP. That's the real nugget that I think INFPs sort of like forget, that don't forsake your FI, and you don't have to forsake your FI in order to be successful, because success is what you define it to be, not what other people define it to be for you. With this, I would also say embrace the FINE and let it open you to a life that you actually want, not a life that you think you want through your TE. Let instead your TE and the other cognitive processes be activated through your FI quest. And a further point that I want to address, linked to INFPs and personal growth and development and moving forward in the world, is I've heard many INFPs say something along the lines of they don't know what to do or what their niche is. And I want to just address this very quickly. And I would say to them, and this ties to the poem, that return back to your roots. And by that, I mean, return back to the place where your FI in your first and your SI in your third intertwine, the ground, the land of yourself, your inner geography, and your memories of a space and place where you were most you, most authentic, and from that place which really, really resonates deeply with you, make that your secure base. So secure base in psychotherapy terms is the place where you feel most secure but are willing to explore from. So I would say make that your secure base, from which you can then freely branch out into the world, and branch out into the world using your NE. I would say that the freedom that is being sought is actually the freedom of hope, love, identity, authenticity, and spirit that resides in the coupling of your FI and NE, in the coupling of the emergent path that you forge for yourself from these cherished roots. I also want to throw out one last thing, which is maybe life will never actually match the idealism you hold so dear, but perhaps reality can actually be better than like the idealized picture of how you think you should be or life should be. And maybe it can be as simple as the couplet in the poem, which is, maybe it can be as simple as letting that page come out of you, and maybe it will actually be true. Maybe there won't be any loss by actually allowing yourself to be seen and heard for who you actually are, and what you actually give to the world, because trust me, you're very much a needed part of this world, this society, the MBTI at large, and existence as a whole. And on that note, I wanted to just say I hope this video has been of some help and some value. It's been a bit of a tussle putting it together, because as I said, I'm new to this also. I'm having to learn new skills as I go along, but hopefully it comes out coherently and smooth. As a send-off, just the usual things, which are please like, share, subscribe, comment, and please also provide any feedback you may have on this video. As I pointed out, it's my second outing solo into the world of YouTube videos. I don't really know what I'm doing, but hopefully it's okay. So thank you very much, and thanks for viewing. If you have to the full extent of this video, which is I think 30 plus minutes now. Okay, bye for now. Thanks.